I've waited as long as I've lived. Time's up. Come get with yours and what's real. Boot up. Blissful in each other's skin above. Finally risen to the occasion. Past love's forgiven. Made heart space for the one. When it feels right, that's that ascension. Never going back to when. Before you forgot my worth. Your love for me feels like a rebirth. I don't wanna lose this high, wouldn't wanna lose this high. I just wanna make me yours, I just wanna make you.
Lights off, transparency on. Late night marriage with the riches. Late night marriage with the riches. You need that real talk, this is what you want. Lights off, transparency on. Let's go.
Hey, what's going on, fam? What's going on? Welcome to Late Night Marriage with the Riches, where it is lights off, transparency on. We are so glad to have you with us. I am Damon Rich,
I am Tamika Rich.
and we're glad to have you with us. You gonna make up your mind?
Well, I was gonna stay on that side, but I looked like I was like way too far away, so I was like, let me.
Oh, okay.
Switch,
Where's
you
your
know.
microphone? They definitely ain't gonna be able to hear it
My
through your shirt.
microphone. You see it?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. All right. There you go. There you go. I knew it. I
Is
knew
that
it was
better?
possible. Yes. Hey, we glad to be in the building with you. We glad to yet another episode of Late Night Marriage with the Riches, and we gonna dig into something tonight. Relationship traps. We're gonna talk about relationship traps and three traps to avoid. Three traps to avoid: consistency, compassion, and consideration. Yeah.
Those are the things to avoid.
Relationship traps. They are traps. Those three words are traps, and we're going to talk about why. But I want you to explain them because this is your thing. This is you on the three things, and you started it out. You go ahead and explain your concept. I'm gonna just sit over here and sip while you explain.
So I call them the 3 C's of her needs. And those come from just talking to women in the relationship space or coaching. And a lot of times when we talk about, so those, when women, the things we say we need is security, right? So, in order to make us feel secure, these are like the breakdown of that big generalized security thing for us. And so, these are the things that normally we have in common when you sit down to talk with other women and have the conversations. Even if the wording is not the same, it kind of leads to being considered. The 3 C's of her needs is consideration, consideration, consistency, and consideration. I'm sorry, consideration, consistency, and compassion. So those are the
Sure,
three
y'all
things.
need those three things?
Yes,
You
I
can't get
am.
them out. You can't
I
get them
know.
out. I don't know if y'all need them.
No, so consideration, consistency, and compassion in no certain order, because I'll say them out of order all the time. But those are the 3 C's of her needs. And a lot of times consideration was like the big one. So usually I would say that first, because a lot of times women didn't feel like they were being considered in decisions um in marriage, even though, and I think it's when we say the man is the head in that whole dynamic, and I think that has to be like taught correctly, differently, if you may,
Mm-hmm.
about really how that, what that means. But even in making decisions, a lot of times they felt like, oh, these decisions was made without me being considered,
Mm-hmm.
or I would be told on the back end. Or if they did something for the family, it was like, oh, I made the decision because, this is my position in the
Mm-hmm.
family. And they didn't feel like their feelings were considered, or their input was considered.
Hmm.
And so with compassion, we talk about tone
Mm-hmm.
a lot because we've talked about tone, but just being compassionate towards um, how she feels, how
Mm-hmm.
she thinks, even when communication, a lot of times, the way it comes across is
Mm-hmm.
harsh sometimes. So just being compassionate, and that goes back to even consideration flows into that of how she would feel with you saying whatever it is you're relaying or communicating. And the other was consistency. And if you go to listen to several or any podcasts or talk shows with women talking or anything, you're going to hear over and over and over consistency. We're just big on you being consistent.
Hmm.
On me and being consistent.
So if he's a consistent cheater, that's cool.
It is consistent. So,
Oh,
but,
okay.
but I'm just saying, that you know, if hey, he's showing you who he is, if he's consistently cheating,
He consistently hit
but
her.
mainly in that space or perspective, or let me put a little perspective there, is
Uh-huh.
is showing up consistently. So the things that they're doing, they're showing up consistently
Well, he
for you, and
consistent.
it's not. Sometimes he'll, take care of this. Sometimes he won't. Um,
He
Sometimes he's gonna do this. Sometimes he won't. So consistent.
he consistently showing up at home for dinner, but he consistently got a side chick.
Huh?
Uh-huh. Yeah. No. I'm just being. I'm
I
looking up the
know.
word compassion,
Mhm.
and it says sympathetic pity and concern for the sufferings or misfortune of others.
Mhm.
So y'all want men to be um have pity and concern for your suffering in marriage and your misfortunes.
Sure. Or how about suffering and misfortunes in life?
I'm just trying to get the context of compassion in the relationship
Mhm.
because I'm just looking at the word and I'm not trying to nitpick that, but I'm just looking at the word. When I look at compassion, you usually think about compassion as one of those things that's like, oh, look at them, they got less than, oh, they did. So I'm just thinking about compassion
Mhm.
um from that perspective. Okay. Yeah. So I looked up
Mhm.
something else, and maybe this contrast helps with the word compassion. Empathy helps is empathy versus compassion. Empathy helps in understanding other people's emotions and creating bonds.
Mhm.
Compassion, however, not only understands but also propels us to take action to help.
Mhm. I
So
like that
yeah.
difference.
So okay. So
Mhm.
I can see it like not only
Yeah.
do I understand your plight, but
Mhm.
I take action to help in that.
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna get into why these three words are traps in a minute. I'm gonna get into it in a minute. But
Let's get into it. But we did talk about this on one of our lives.
uh-huh.
Um and we did say that it's not that men don't need these things, but we said it was just different.
Men need head, bed, and bread. Oh,
Really?
I said that out loud. I'm
You did.
teasing. I'm teasing. I'm
You
teasing.
did.
Kind of teasing, but yeah, or bread, uh,
Right. But it wasn't
bread, bed, and bread.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't a overall statement or oh these are things that only women need.
Because I want to get down to it. So
Mhm.
let's go back to consistency because you talk about a lot of women, but we've been married for 25 years.
Mhm.
So let's go through each one of those and tell me about your moments. You ain't got to get a whole dictionary, but the
Mhm.
your moments of it. One, where did this concept come from for you? And then two, where did you experience the presence or the lack thereof of
Right.
these?
For me, and I tell you when I talk about, I don't know if it's just embedded in us as women, it's a part of our femininity or what, but um, we seem to need that consistency in order to feel or be secure. So that's one of the things. So for me, if it was either asking to do something or just something I felt that was supposed to be done or needed to be done,
Mm-hmm.
like when you have roles, or if we talk about roles or certain things and we go, oh, this is something you're going to be responsible for. So consistently doing that thing that you said, oh, I'm going to be responsible for this
Mm-hmm.
in the relationship or the marriage. And so showing up and making sure you're doing it consistently.
Mm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's still very general, but okay. Cool.
Oh,
All right. Consistency.
I'll let you talk and I'll think back of
Go
something. Just
go. Okay, so that's consistency. Go to compassion.
um compassion, the same thing. When you, hey, if I come home one day and I seem to be kind of all over the place or emotional or whatever it is. And so men sometimes have a tendency of going, suck it up, buttercup, not in those words exactly, but not feeling or being there in the moment with you because it's going to be different. So when I'm saying showing that compassion is like whatever that I'm going through at the moment, have an emotional day. You know, we're hormonal. Sometimes it could be hormones or this or that, the other. Being understanding and showing that compassion in the moment of being loving to whatever it is. Hey, this is you. How can I help? Can I make
Mm-hmm.
it better? What do I need to do?
Okay. Okay.
Just overall, or even if it was something that um she got wrong or didn't, or I didn't do right. And so the comeback or the nod is, you did,
Example.
oh, I don't have an example. You did this.
Hey y'all, our 25 years been such a blur. My wife has zero examples of any of this stuff she talking about. So y'all just you know.
Right. For me, I have to be like really think back to like a moment
Mm. Okay.
of yeah, I can't go December
I
19,
ain't nobody ask you for all that.
2020.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm not saying I did, but that's when I what I think about when we talk about being compassion
Mm.
or
Okay.
having compassion.
Mm. Okay.
Like um
Okay. Consistency, compassion. Because when I think about that compassion thing and you
mhm
saying that, and I can vouch for this from our marriage in and also from talking with men,
mhm
it is difficult for someone to show compassion to someone who says nothing's wrong. It's like, hey, babe, I know, hey, you good? You all right? Yeah, I'm fine. No, clearly you're not. Something's wrong. What's on your
mhm
mind? Oh, nothing. Oh, okay. You
yeah.
sure? Yeah, I'm good. Oh, okay then.
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. If she's saying nothing wrong, there's nothing you could do about it. But through communication, or when she goes, "Oh, I did this," or "This is wrong," or "I feel like this is falling apart."
But that's when you have communicated, then he can respond to it.
Mhm.
But he
Mhm.
cannot respond to something you say. It church folks finna get mad. Okay, that's just like church folk who do the yeah, man, leg about to fall out. Yeah, man, leg about to fall out, but I ain't claiming it. But your leg is detaching from your body. What do you mean you're not claiming it?
Mhm.
If we're not claiming stuff, what exactly are you taking to the Lord in prayer? Right?
Right.
What are you taking to the Lord in prayer if nothing is wrong? I'm not, yeah, man, man, what that just flew out your mouth? Oh, but I've been coughing up parts of my lung. I think I got something, but I ain't claiming it. But that's the same thing. It's like,
Mhm.
hey, I'm not. I'm off. Hey, what's going on? No, I ain't feeling some kind of way, but I ain't claiming it because I don't want to tell you, or I ain't sharing it with you. Okay, then. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that.
Mhm.
And particularly, that becomes challenging for a man.
Mhm.
For a man, when the woman is
Right.
saying so particularly that's challenging for a man who may already not be have that emotional intelligence yet,
Mhm.
or hasn't been taught to cater to the emotions of a woman
Right.
in that way, right? Or to do anything other than give her gifts or something like that, but never really address, hey, what's going on with you? I'm here, let's talk. that
Mhm.
that so you saying nothing, nothing, nothing. Well, I ain't gonna keep asking you. So then over time he gets trained. Well, I may as well not ask because you're gonna say nothing wrong.
Mhm.
So let me not say nothing. And then it comes back to being in trouble because you ain't noticed that. I did notice, but every time I notice you like that, you said ain't nothing wrong. I'm not gonna keep so here's my thing, and I'm gonna say
Mhm.
something, and people take it with a grain of salt. You also have to be what you want.
Mhm.
And I'm not discrediting the hormone effect or whatever for women. I
Right.
think a lot of that is made worse by some of the foods and the extra hormones that are in our food and medicine for birth control and stuff like that. It makes
Mhm.
that different or whatever. Um, but it is hard to want to be consistent for someone who has a built-in reason. I'm not going to call it an excuse. Reason for being inconsistent. Because consistency is not just through action, consistency is also through emotion.
Mhm.
I'm not saying everything's going to be predictable, but you can't walk into a house and wonder what version of this person I'm going to get. And that's on both sides of the coin,
Yeah, for sure.
right? So consistency has to be there. And I'm going to talk about these 3 C's from a man's perspective in a minute and tell you why I think the 3 C's are a trap that should be avoided with all cost. I'm going to tell you why. But I think that consistency, that level of consistency, that perspective around consistency, um, I it has to exist on both sides. It's reciprocity, right?
Mhm.
When it comes to compassion, there has to be a level of compassion that, again, it has to be reciprocal,
Right.
but you have to participate in your own compassion. And so, what I mean by that, when you look at compassion, imagine having compassion on someone who is homeless and jobless
Mhm.
and foodless. And you say, I want to, hey, what do you need? And
Mhm.
they say, I don't need anything other than some money for some food. Okay. Do you
Right.
have somewhere to stay? Oh, no, 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 no. I don't have anywhere to stay. How about I offer you a place to stay, somewhere to work, and some food till you get back on your feet? And they say, well, I don't know, right?
Mhm.
They're unwilling to participate. Well, could you give me the house and I just need a break. Could you get me something to put a roof over my head and some food? And I'll pass on the job part. Oh, you got to participate in your own compassion. You got to be a part of the process, right?
Mhm.
And so, and when I say being a participant of your own compassion, you have to welcome it because there are people who will reject
Right.
it. And that
For
happens, I
sure.
think, a lot in relationships where the compassion gets rejected. And sometimes
Mhm.
the compassion gets rejected when it doesn't. Sometimes the compassion gets rejected when when it isn't understood,
Mhm.
when it is has not been normal for that person, not just in their marriage, but in their life.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say if it was some brokenness there you don't really know what it looks like
Yeah.
all the time. So when it's presented, you reject it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that compassion part. So I'll say something else about with regard to compassion is let me give you an example. Um, you had Deshay and you came home, and this is when I was also kind of in my young Christianism, and you were starting to talk about postpartum depression, and I was like, we ain't not having no postpartum depression over here. This and that. Complete incompassionate
Mm-hmm.
response, right?
Right.
Complete incompassionate, uncompassionate response to something I didn't understand. I just knew it was bad. I know it can cause somebody to spiral, and I felt like I needed to just be that encourager, and I failed to demonstrate compassion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that if you I was never raised in the house, and this is not an excuse. It's a reason so that people can understand. I was never raised in a house where I saw a father
Right.
kids at that age
Mm-hmm.
in support of mama
Mm-hmm.
through pregnancy.
Right.
So just being there and trying to be there, through the pregnancy cycle was a whole thing feed in itself for me. I'm like, okay, I have no playbook here.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the men I'm around, they don't have no playbook.
Right.
What am I doing? Okay, I'm be here. I'm supposed to go to doctor's appointments. So you
Mm-hmm.
try and express compassion the best way you know how. But I think that sometimes women and men get upset when compassion is not expressed the way they want it. When you see a homeless person on the street and they say, I need food, and they legitimately say, no, 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 don't give me no money, just buy me some food.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling you how they need compassion to show up for them in that moment.
Right.
And I think that we have to make sure that for those who would extend compassion to us,
Mm-hmm.
that we would know how to communicate how we need compassion to show up for us. But also, I go to the Bible, the practical side of the Bible, when the man was sitting outside the gate and Peter and them rolled through and he was begging for alms. And he was expressing this how I want compassion to show up. And
Mm-hmm.
they like, nah, this ain't how we got. We ain't got your form of compassion. We got something better.
Mm-hmm.
And the man had to be willing to accept that form of compassion, and ultimately, long term, it was better for him.
Right.
Okay.
I understand
Yeah. So that's consistency, that's compassion, and
that. Consideration.
consideration. So let's talk about consideration.
Yes.
I
Let's
want
talk about it.
I want to be considered in the decisions of the home. Hmm. Like it. Y'all chime in. If y'all want to join us on air, let us know. We'll bring you up. But
Or if you have a question, let
or
us
if you
know.
have a question, drop a question out there. So I want to be considered. And to me, considered is to be thought about,
Mm-hmm.
factored in, as you said,
Right.
your feelings, your impact. I gotta look up a word. I gotta look up the word. I gotta look up the word. Hold on. Cause I wanna
Yeah.
I like before I say what
The dictionary tonight.
yeah, before I say what I was gonna say, I wanna make sure careful thought,
Mm-hmm.
typically over a period of time, a payment or a reward. Okay. Thoughtfulness and sensitivity towards others.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So consideration, thoughtfulness and sensitivity.
Sensitivity.
Okay. I didn't see the word involvement. And I'm not saying that the involvement shouldn't happen,
Right.
but I didn't see the word involvement.
I
Here,
think thoughtfulness covers that part.
thoughtfulness, but that don't mean involvement. Hey, babe, I thought about you and this and how this decision gonna play out. Yeah, yeah. and I'm not saying that I'm, tongue in cheek,
Mm-hmm.
but I can understand. Again, I can go to. There's times that I have gone out. Um, hey, what's going on, fam? Love you
Hello.
too. Um, the thing that I come
Yes,
back
we
to,
do.
hmm?
No, you.
The thing that I come back to when it comes down to consideration, I can think of, times
Mm-hmm.
that I can go times where, as a husband, I'm just trying to kind of keep, I'm battling my own internal thoughts. I'm just trying to keep the boat afloat. I am also thinking about how you may be viewing me or even through your actions or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm like, okay, financially we struggle, whatever. Let me go out here and get this high interest rate loan to keep us afloat while we get it together. Then we get it back together, but now I got this hanging over our head and I never considered you. I never talked to you. I just made a decision that I thought was best for the family. I
Mm-hmm.
can get that,
Okay.
right? I
Mm-hmm.
can completely understand that. So I'm giving y'all real life. Like, yes,
Right. And
but
then if you have, this is me for the ladies, if you have something that you feel like you hadn't been considered um in the process of your relationship or your marriage, please drop that in the comments as well.
yeah,
Yeah, a particular time that you can remember, or what do you think like being consideration is in the
mhm,
relationship for you, or a time that you
yeah,
wasn't considered?
yeah. So I'm good up to here.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the woman's side.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm gonna pivot some of this
Okay.
and talk about men and how. First, I'm gonna talk about how we feel about all that. Then I'm gonna talk about what those things are for us and why those words feel like a trap for us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm gonna start back at consistency. Or no, consideration.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna start with consideration. Men often are not considered in their home when it comes down to certain things that go around in the home. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm a woman and this is my role. And so if I want to move the couch over here, or I want to put this on the wall, or I want to do, but I like this setup like it is. Well, we need new furniture or whatever. I don't want new furniture, but I'm going to hear about we need new furniture until we get new furniture. So was I really considered? But I want to be considered,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
I want um to be considered, but I'm not willing to consider him. And it's in small things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So over time, things play out. It's like you're not considered in certain aspects, and then that's not going to. And I'm not saying this is a tit for tat. So please, no one sit and watch say tit for tat. We try. No, I'm not trying to do tit for tat. I'm looking at it from a standpoint of, for men, we get desensitized to consideration of her when we see her consistently not consider us. So whether that's with the kids, whether that's with in-laws,
Mm-hmm.
whether that is with work, whether that is with friends, it's like you want consideration, but
Mm-hmm.
I want consideration as
Right.
well. And as a man, what consideration looks like to me
Mm-hmm.
has to do with being considered, like not always telling me that my thoughts or my feelings are wrong. That's not even considering
Right.
where I'm at with a thing, right? Or how I'm feeling about a thing. It's like you just being too sensitive. So when I want consideration, I'm being sensitive. When you want it and I don't give it, and I'm not talking about you specifically,
Mm-hmm.
but when you want it and I don't get it, then I'm being inconsiderate,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, it definitely has to work both ways. I think we just view them differently as men and women, and we talked about that
Mm-hmm.
before. But I think a lot of this is eliminated through communication and conversation.
It is,
Because
but
not knowing um, what, like you were just saying or stating some of the things that makes you feel considered, and same on her end. So I think a lot of times it's lack of communication.
well, some of it is lack of communication,
Mm-hmm.
but some of it is, this is a lie we tell ourselves around consideration.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do a lot of times is stop and say, would I want to be consulted
Yep. Agreed.
if he was doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Where we lie to ourselves is when it's something we want to do, we say, nah, he won't care.
Mm-hmm.
Nah, they won't care about this. Would
Right.
I want to be consulted?
Mm-hmm.
And
And
you,
then sometimes they may not. Like knowing your spouse
over
is one
time, you may
over
learn
time
that.
for sure, or even ask the question.
But over time, you may learn that.
Mm-hmm.
But also, even if you learn that over time, things change. So you pay
Mm-hmm.
attention and you just still every now and again, you might go 5 times asking, they like, babe, I really don't care about that. But okay. And then you go 5 times not asking, but on time number 6 and not asking, you say, hey, I'm finna get ready to do that. I told you I don't care about that. You good. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you go, but every now and again, I'm still check in so
Mm-hmm.
that you don't think I'm taking that for granted.
Right.
Right. So that's the consideration aspect. When it turns around to compassion,
I don't like how he spend money.
yeah,
So you feel like you're not considered when he's spending money.
yeah,
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 I can see that. I get that.
yeah. So now when we talk about the compassion aspect,
Mm-hmm.
because the consideration is a trap, the reason I call it a trap is because for that man, he wants the same thing. He wants to be considered in his home, right? But when he is not, it's it goes back to the crazy cycle of Dr. Emerson Eggerichs. When she acts disrespectful, he acts unloving. When he acts unloving, she acts disrespecting. So it goes round and round and
Mm-hmm.
round. It's the crazy
Cycle.
cycle.
Yeah.
So the most mature has to break it. But here's the thing. You're like that crazy cycle shows up in everything. If you're gonna continue to be inconsiderate of me, eventually I'm gonna be inconsiderate to you.
Mm-hmm.
Some men are very hard to are hard to please. I true on both counts. Some women are hard to please, some men are hard to please.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Um but when it comes down to compassion, when I want someone to understand, there's a song by Dax, what it's like to be a man.
Mm-hmm.
I have a shirt which will be on sale and for order soon. If you're interested, DM me. And it says CONH. No, godly. Oh, COHNT, something like that. The cost of having nuts.
Mm.
Don't you hit me?
I didn't hit you. I was scratching
Oh,
my
girl.
leg.
The
No, I
cost
didn't.
the cost of having nuts.
Yeah.
C O
Oh,
H
I've
N
heard you
T.
say that plenty of times.
Right? There are some things that are that, but that doesn't mean he doesn't need compassion. There are sometimes that things it's just expected of a man.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that there's not that expectation of women, but it's just expected of man. And if he complains about how dare you complain about it, how dare you soft, you sensitive, it's that. But then if he acts hard all the time, you ain't never sensitive enough. It's like I don't understand. I need compassion. I have emotions, and in some cases, my emotions are worse because I often don't. I talking figuratively for men don't have safe outlets.
Mm-hmm.
So now that emotion sits in my chest and breaks down my body because I don't have anywhere to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Um, During particularly stressful season of our marriage, I have, and I still have it to this day. I don't know why it's there still, but I just developed this pain right up here.
Mm-hmm.
They have not found a reason. I've been suffering with this for quite a few years now. They've not found a reason for that pain, right? Maybe they're
Yeah.
gonna have to put a CAT scan on it, or MRI or something, but they haven't found a reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
And because they haven't found a reason for it, my doctor said it could just be stress. You're under a lot of stress. At that time, I was under a lot of work stress, a lot of life stress, stress. Could
Mm-hmm.
be. Stress will break your body down, particularly
It
when you
will.
don't feel like there's any compassion, anyone understands you, anyone sees you, that type of thing, right?
Right.
So that compassion becomes a trap because it's like I can give it, but I can't receive it. because if I ask for it, then I'm perceived differently,
Mm-hmm.
right? And as much as women, I was watching something the other day, as much as women like to say this differently, I just, maybe it's something genetically hardwired in y'all. Y'all ask for a softer version or a softer side of us, but when you see the softer side of us, you lose respect for us. Take me a sip.
I don't know about that.
I think so.
Mm-mm.
Now, I think that there's a reason for that
Mm-hmm.
that is rooted in societal persuasion and brokenness.
Oh yeah, that's where I was going.
But because who's not broken, absolutely y'all see it that way,
Mm-hmm.
feel that way. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. And it's something you probably don't even recognize sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But so I know you don't like to go through car washes, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're wild now. To me, not being inconsiderate or uncompassionate, especially going through a car wash, is the silliest thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
However, okay, that's your thing, right?
Right.
We had a incident a couple of months ago or something, and is with fish, and you know how I feel about fish and bones.
Mm-hmm.
So when I tried to eat the food, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the softer side? Explain. I'll come back to that. I'll definitely explain. So when I went to eat the fish, I came into a bone.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to power through it, but then I ran into a second bone. I was like, nah, I can't eat it. And he's like, what? I said, I can't eat it. No, I got to eat something. And you were so uncompassionate towards that, including not only your words, but your demeanor towards me was like, you being silly. That's like your facial expression, like you're being silly.
I didn't say that.
No,
Mm-hmm.
your whole facial expression, your
Mhm.
demeanor of it.
Mhm.
That's why I say I don't even know if you recognize, but your whole facial expression and demeanor of it was like I was just overreacting.
Mm-hmm.
But that bone is to me what that car wash is to you.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about compassion, that's an example of where things don't always go that way. And when we say that softer side, you looking at me like you just being extra, you being soft, you being what. That's that whole demeanor of it. But it's like, okay, babe, you instead compassion is like, I get it. Let me help. I get something else, so you want something else. No, it was after kind of basically ridiculing me in that moment. Then it was like, oh, do you want me to fix you something else? Well, I was like, I got it.
Right.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's till you get to the understanding of it. And that's the thing, because sometimes you don't know until you know. And what may be a certain thing for you, even if you go, oh, that's silly, or you feel that type of way, that's to you and not to them. And so until you understand it, same thing. So on my end, there was a time when I said, I'm not doing that, where it was like, no, you need to do it, or that's same thing, until you really understood or I explained why this is an issue.
I understood a certain aspect of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's a matter of, so for me, that's again one of those spiritual things.
Mm-hmm.
That's a that's definitely a fear, and even with the
Mm-hmm.
bone, it's a fear.
Mm-hmm.
My thing with the bone, I don't even know if it's a fear. I don't want to get something stuck in my throat, so I avoid eating fish. It
Mm-hmm.
ain't even that I don't like the taste of fish,
Mm-hmm.
but I try to avoid eating fish or certain
Certain
type of
kinds.
fish or
Mm-hmm.
fish that are not filleted well. Mm-mm. I just, if I don't know the person that filleted it, or it's like a store, like a Sam's or Costco or something like that, or a fish market, let me be out of it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, Miss Elsa, you said, what's the softer side?
Explain.
Explain.
Mm-hmm.
So
And she also said her husband don't like
Bones
bones
and
in his
fish
fish.
either. Exactly. So the softer side of man is when he can let down his guard, when he can even cry in front of you, when he can tell you about his fears, when he can tell you about his anxiety, his hopes, his dreams. That's the softer side of a man. A lot of times men don't get to, or a lot of times men don't feel
Mm-hmm.
they get the opportunity to really dream with their spouse, particularly if they've had some hard moments in marriage. Um, she says she feel like she eating fake fish if it ain't no bones in it. I hear you. I hear you. That could be true too.
Right.
Um,
So just fillets.
exactly. So, but that's the softer side of a man when he's able to be vulnerable with you. And that's a whole nother episode, whole different topic
Mm-hmm.
about vulnerability. So we talked about consistency. We talked about compassion. Now we're going to talk about
We
we talked
talked
about
about consideration.
consideration.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about compassion. Now we're going to talk about, what am I talking about?
Consistency. We thought.
Consistency. There we go.
Oh,
I thought we already covered consistency.
I thought we did
Yeah,
too.
we did. So we talked about, so now we're going to talk about consideration. What did we not talk about?
We talked about all three.
Oh, we done hit
Consistency.
all three. We done hit all
Mm-hmm.
three. Okay. Okay.
Consistency, compassion, and consideration.
Yeah. And oh yeah, because I was talking about consideration and moving the stuff around
Mm-hmm.
in the house, and I talked about the consistency of showing up with consistency.
Mm-hmm.
So here's why all of this is a trap. Here's why all of this is a trap when it comes to the three C's. If you don't take the time to exercise compassion towards you, you can't do it towards someone else. If you don't take the time to consider you, you can't consider someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Unless you're a people pleaser. Okay.
Right.
So consistency, compassion, and consideration, right? If you don't take the time to consider you, you can't consider someone else. Now you may say, oh, you just said a whole bunch of nothing. Let me break it down for you. How do I know that my spouse doesn't have compassion for themselves? How do they treat their body? How hard are they on themselves when they make human mistakes that
Mm-hmm.
everyone makes? How quickly are they able to assess it, process it, sit with it for a minute, then let it go?
Mm-hmm.
Do they just crucify themselves? And they may not say it out of their mouth, but you see it in their, like, I am a perfectionist. Part of my perfectionism is in growing up and not feeling I had a certain level of compassion towards me,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that's some of it. And so I get into this place
Right.
where there is no tougher critic on me than me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I've there's times I can do something and people like, man, that was great. I was like, I ain't give you my best yet. I'm still working on it. Man, stop trying to be perfect, man. It's not perfect. It is a level of perfectionism, but I want to feel good and like, boy, you just gave your best right there.
Mm-hmm.
Your best came out right there.
Right.
You know. So when it comes down to compassion, and when it comes down that another way of showing compassion, consideration for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
do they have a self-care routine? I'm not talking about a selfish care routine.
Right.
Do they have a self-care routine? Do they do things that are relaxing, that allow them to care for, as you used to tell me, do they have anything that puts them in neutral? back in the day, playing video games was my neutral. I would put myself in neutral. Do they have a self-care routine? If they don't, they're going to have a hard time showing consideration for you because they're not even considering themselves. They're treating themselves like a machine. Okay? So that's consideration. That's compassion. Now consistency, right? I'm going to tell y'all about this journey I'm on. And it's multi-layered. It's a multi-layered journey. So I'm doing the Whole 30. And with the Whole 30, I'm just basically eating fruits, veggies, and meat for 30 days to kind of detox my body from processed foods and all that kind of stuff. Then I will go through a 10-day cycle of adding certain things back and see how my body responds to it. Y'all, it's day 15. I'm halfway there. And by day 3, I wanted to quit. I'm like, man, forget this. I'm just cut back on this. Now I'm down almost 20, a little over 20, close to 20 pounds. I'm down, approaching being down close to 20 pounds, right? Before this is over, I pray to see under 300. Okay. Boy, kind of healthy. But I want to keep that momentum, not on the Whole 30, but I'm learning to make better food choices. For example, this is not a beer or anything. This is a free calorie seltzered water that has watermelon. It's not the greatest, but I'm learning to like different things. I'm learning to like now, one of the things I'm probably going to switch to with my coffee routine is the nut pods and not do dairy anymore. I'm finding that as like, hey, that works. I'm going to still have me some sweets here and there, but I'm going to learn to be disciplined about eating sweets. What was this about? It's about trying to develop some consistency in me so that I can show up and be consistent externally. Right? I have other areas I want to develop consistency for me, because this is what I'm going to tell you. And I want you to write this down and post it somewhere. And you can put in whichever one applies to you. I cannot be a better, and either plug in husband or wife, right? I cannot be a better husband until I am a better person. All right. I cannot be a better husband or wife until I am first a better person. You've got to be a better person.
You have to be to yourself what you want someone else to be to you.
Yes.
You have to do that.
Yes.
And a lot of times, if you're not aware of a lot of things, you can't do that. So self-awareness is key to knowing, and then going past just being aware. What do I need to do to heal this or get better or overcome whatever it is? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So definitely true, being consistent to yourself, considerate to yourself, and compassionate to yourself.
Absolutely.
Is key. Because a lot of times if you think about it, you go, am I this way to myself? Because you talked about being a perfectionist and hard on yourself. And usually when you do that, without showing yourself grace, it's kind of hard to do to others.
Yes.
And then sometimes people can show other people more grace and compassion than they do to themselves.
They do.
You know.
But you know what? And I'm going to be transparent. How we usually do that is we go ahead and chalk up in our mind they're not as strong as us.
That's true.
That's it. Like they not as strong as us. So I have to show them I'm strong. I have to bear the infirmities of the weak. Right?
Right.
If I'm being honest, that's how it, and I'm not saying I do that all the time, but where I have grown in compassion for people is understanding that everyone's growing up somewhere.
Right.
Everyone
And
is
we have
growing
to
up.
realize a lot of these things we have been conditioned to doing
Yeah.
and seeing and being
Yeah.
and having that mindset.
Yeah.
So it takes something to get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. Let me. I'm gonna say something, Miss Elsa. You put something. You making me go in my bag, and this probably a whole nother episode. So let me go in my bag right quick. Me and a friend was having a good conversation the other day, and this is what we were talking about. You. So let me put this a different way. We talked about falling in love versus learning to love
Mm.
or choosing to love. I want y'all to write this down too and put it somewhere. I don't want anyone to fall in love with me. Okay? I want you to hear that. I don't want anyone to fall in love with me. Okay. Let me get in bag mode. Okay. Why? Because we live in a nation where everything is about falling in love. Okay? But you don't want anyone who is falling in love with you or has fell in love with you. Why? Because falling doesn't take effort. I want you to think about it. I want you to go into a practical perspective. If you go and you trip over a stick in your yard, where do you put the most effort in? Falling or trying to stay upright?
Mm.
Falling does not take effort, which means that if you can fall in love with me, you can fall out of love with me. But learning to love me leaves room for me to grow. Learning to love me leaves room for compassion. Learning to love me leaves room for mercy. Learning to love me leaves room for grace. Learning to love me takes effort because in order to make a good grade on learning to love me, and I'm just using the grade as an example, in order to do that, I have to put sincere effort into studying and learning to love that person, choosing to love that person. But falling in love takes no effort. So if you hear somebody say, "Oh, I fell in love with you," and or I'm still, why are you in love with me? How did you get in love with me? Yeah, I fell in love with you from the first day up. Godly, we got a problem because falling doesn't take effort. Learning, because if I have someone willing to learn to love me, they are committed to a process of watching me mature. Because here's the thing about falling in love. See, when you fall in love with somebody, and this is with somebody, and this happens in a lot of marriages, when you fall in love with somebody, y'all, let's say y'all wasn't living together. Soon as y'all start living together, you're gonna start to see some things that you ain't even think to bring up in the conversation, and they wasn't hiding it. They didn't even think to bring it up either. Right? Learning to love. Because if you fall in love when those things happen, guess what? Every day you discover something new, it's going to chip away at the falling because falling doesn't take effort. But if you learn to love them, you'll take those things, learn to communicate so that y'all can overcome whatever that friction or that barrier is.
Yeah.
So hashtag no more falling in love. Learn to love me. Choose to love me. Don't fall in love with me because falling doesn't take effort. And I'm back out the bag.
So I can get my spot.
You get your spot back, baby. So
Good. That's good.
so yeah. So the pitfall of the three C's, absolutely we need to learn to consider each other. We need to take compassion on one another, and we need to be consistent with one another.
So we're going to change it to the three C's of their needs or the 3 C's of our needs.
The 3 C's of our needs.
There we go.
We need to be consistent with each other.
Hmm.
We need to consistently
So
show up.
same 3 things, they just may look different
Yes. They may look different.
for him
Yes.
and versus our or look different for me as well.
Yeah. They may look different.
Mm-hmm.
But find out what consistency means to each other.
other. Mm.
Agree on that. And every now and again, revisit it. Don't go on autopilot. Y'all already know how I feel about autopilot relationships. Do that. Not only in being consistent with each other, learn to consider each other. And just stop and ask yourself, would I want to be consulted about this? Now, there's difference in personalities and such. So that there are things that maybe you would not want to be considered. But the fact that you stop and ask lets you know you should at least stop and ask them. Right?
Right.
You should at least stop and ask them. And then when it comes to compassion, you cannot have a great marriage.
Turn up the volume.
Oh, the volume's gone down. Oh, right. I'm sorry, I went in my quiet storm voice.
Okay.
You cannot. The thing about it when it comes down to not compassion, when it comes down to consideration or whatever, until you learn to consider each other. When you learn to consider yourself first,
Right.
it'll help you consider them later. When it comes down to compassion, you cannot have a marriage. You cannot have a healthy marriage if you do not learn the art. If you do not learn the art of grace, mercy, and forgiveness.
True that.
You cannot have a healthy marriage if you do not learn the art of grace, mercy, and forgiveness. So, yeah.
Because it requires all that.
Uh-oh.
Are we bringing on a gas?
No, we ain't bringing on a gas.
Okay.
Yeah.
It requires all that for marriage.
All of that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I did to this thing. It done messed up. Did something on it. But, yeah, we got anything else?
No, I was just thinking as you said that I think a lot of people have to realize that definitely has to be the thought process going into marriage and when you're preparing for marriage. All 3 of those things.
Yeah.
And what that may look like you said earlier, was the important thing is there's a lot of things you may not learn about a person before the I do's, before you truly covenant or commit to each other. So you're definitely going to need those 3 things throughout the journey, throughout the process, for preparing yourself for that. Are there certain things you need to communicate and know about before you say the I do? Certainly, and we talk about those things sometimes. Or if you want to talk about them, let us know.
Yeah.
Things that you need to, the data that you need to be collecting during the courting or dating stage, before you walk down that aisle, and say I do to somebody. But just know, don't go in it romanticizing and fantasizing to the point that you miss what marriage really is and what it's going to take to keep the marriage long term.
Yeah. Hey, listen, that's all we have for you tonight. We thank you for rocking with us.
Yes.
In the month of June, we're going to be bumping up. We're considering changing the time, so be on the lookout for that. But for the rest of this month, we're going to be here next Wednesday at 10 o'clock. We're looking forward to it. Remember, it is lights off, transparency on, and this has been another episode of Late Night Marriage with the Riches, and we'll see you on the next video. God bless.
God bless. Good night, and we love you.
For real.
Good night.